here today to introduce to you to our new kindergarten teacher and tell you a little bit about our program. And I'm super excited to have Mandy Schaefer here with me. I've actually had the pleasure of working with her for 5 years in a private kindergarten setting, so I've seen the amazing things that she can do. And Tiny Treasures is just beyond blessed to have this amazing woman. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about the program, a little bit about Mrs. Schaefer, and we have some questions that parents sent in, and we hope to be able to answer all of those. So I'm proud to say that we have Mrs. Schaefer. She has her degree in education from early 2000 from University of Houston in early childhood, certification pre-K 4 through 5th grade. Your experience is basically in both pre-K 4 all the way through the higher elementary grades. And you've worked for Friendswood ISD, Pasadena ISD, and a private Christian school very similar to here at Tiny Treasures. And like I mentioned, Mandy and I spent 5 years working together, where I also had the opportunity to see her in those classrooms. And some of the things that we really have talked about that we love about a private kindergarten is just the smaller group, being able to do more small group instruction, more one-on-one, being able to utilize a lot of hands-on learning, being able to challenge beyond the regular curriculum, because in those small groups you can do that. And I know this year I already see you doing that with your pre-K 4s who are writing, and some of them starting to write words and working on sentences. It's very easy to do when you have that small group. And then when children are struggling too, because you have that smaller class size, you can, sort your have the children in small groups where you can really focus on some of those struggling needs. So I know that's something that we both have really loved with that. What are some things that you're looking forward to here at Tiny Treasures with the kindergarten?
Well, I'm looking so forward to being with the families here that are here at Tiny Treasures. It's just very family-like. It's very small, so again, you get to meet the needs of all the learners, and it's very hands-on here, very hands-on. And I love it. I love it here in a private school.
And since Mandy has been teaching for so long, we actually have the ability to craft this program. And so, she knows certain things that she likes to use, such as Unifix cubes for teaching children's base 1 and base 10. Or the letter manipulatives for building words. We're going to be able to create a program and buy the things that we've seen are really effective for kids. Mm-hmm. And I'll just speak personally, I love early literacy. Some of you know me from other facets of jobs that I've done, and I love seeing children fall in love with reading, learning to read, blending those words together. It's such an exciting time. And so I'm excited to be able to see our kids go from pre-K 4 to kindergarten, to starting to read, to fall in love with reading, fall in love with books. And I personally have already said I have a level library A to Z that I'll bring over. And then we'll also have guided reading books that we purchase for the guided reading groups that we're doing. But I'm super excited about that. That's something we haven't been able to have before. Tell us about what curriculum and standards you follow when teaching the kids.
Okay, we will still use the same standards, the learning standards and the math and the language arts TEKS that public school uses too.
So the state of Texas has developed the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills objectives for public schools. They're not required for private schools, but we will still be following the reading, language arts, and math TEKS to make sure that our children are prepared for first grade. As an educator myself, somebody who works with children from young in our program all the way to privately all the way through high school and college, I have seen how incredibly important it is to lay that foundation during the early years. And that's why I'm passionate about it, because we can take a child who otherwise might have struggled for 12 years through school and lay that foundation in that first year. And we're serious about what we do. We talk with the parents. We get our guided reading groups in. We take that very seriously and really want to help accelerate the children so that they don't struggle. Some of the feedback that we've gotten.
Some of the feedback, well, yes, it's just so rewarding to hear some of the things that we hear from our parents. We have had siblings that have come through with some of the families that we have, and they come back and they tell us that the readers are just so high. We've had two that were in two different classes, and they wanted to put those two in the same class because the reading levels were just so high.
There was not one other child in the whole grade that was that high as the two that came from
Exactly.
Asbury.
And we had two that were asked to go skip first grade and go on to second grade because they were just so high.
And I know that I even had a parent one year come back and say, you know, they really want to know what program y'all are using over there. And I said, we're using the Mandy program. We're using the Mandy program. We know our literacy, and we love to do it in a fun, exciting way. That's one of the big advantages. The other thing that I always liked was we do assessments right when school starts, within the first month or so, just to see where they are, because it's really important that you don't overwhelm a child or make things too difficult for them. You want to meet them where they are, but we would always start those reading groups around September, October, whereas a lot of children do not have that entire school year with those readers and reading. I feel like that was something that always helped our children, was to have, you know, the whole school year setting them up for experience. So that's something I always like to see how they could accelerate from very, very early on. Well, we have some parents who sent in some really good questions. This actually started with a parent sending me an email that I was like, those are really good questions. I think everybody else would love to hear that. So we're going to try to hit on those things today. So Ms. Schaefer, if you will ask me the questions, and I'll be happy to answer about our kindergarten program.
Okay, I'll ask you some of these questions. How will it compare academically to public kindergarten?
So, like I mentioned, we will still be following the statewide TEKS for reading, language, arts, and math. It is very important, you know, here in our community that we serve, it's very important that we prepare our children for first grade and beyond. That's going to be something that we're going to be working with the parents on. We're going to be letting you know if there might be a weakness or something that we're going to work on together. But our children will follow the same kinds of standards. And this is going to kind of lead to another question, but I actually have report cards from both Clear Creek ISD and Friendswood ISD. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a report card that incorporates all of those aspects and make sure that we are targeting every single objective and skill that they're also assessing the children on. So when your child moves into public school, the public school will very easily be able to see, okay, how did they do in their kindergarten objectives? But it is our goal to have every child have mastered those and be fully ready to go to first grade. Now, there are times that there could be a child who's struggling in something, and we're going to have that open communication. We always did a beginning of the year assessment, mid-year assessment, and end of the year assessment. And that allows us to have a dialogue with the parents if there's something that they're really falling behind on, and we could target and work together, and how are we going to do that. But it is our goal to have them exposed to and taught at and have hands-on experiences at the regular age level kindergarten curriculum. But with the use of small group, we can accelerate. We can go higher. If we see that they've mastered that, there's nothing stopping us saying, oh no, you can only teach it at this level. We can go a little bit higher. So hopefully
make it more rigorous and relevant to their little lives.
So that actually kind of leads into the next question. Will Friendswood ISD, this one is specific for Friendswood, recognize this program when my child goes in the public school? So very interesting. Kindergarten is actually not required by the state of Texas. If you look up on TEA's website, kindergarten is not required. So even if you went to enroll your child into first grade, if they had not been in kindergarten, they cannot require that your children go to kindergarten again. However, they can require that they have certain skills mastered to be ready for it. I want to let you know we did some research. We called around to both Clear Creek ISD, Friendswood ISD, and other area schools regarding that, asking what would be the best thing for them when a child transfers in. Of course, obviously, they all said, yes, the child will transfer in, with a kindergarten here from Tiny Treasures. And the best thing that they could have is a thorough report card and any kind of assessments. So since we do a beginning, mid-year, and end-year assessment, we'll be able to provide that information and the report card that, like I said, will be a hybrid kind of combination of Friendswood and Clear Creek ISD to our parents so that when they transfer in, they'll have that information. We'll also work on sight words very similarly to both of the districts here who work on sight words. We go off of the Dulce Basic Sight Word List also, and we'll make sure that we encompass all of that so that your child is fully prepared, and also that you have the documentation supporting that and showing where they're at. So the answer to the long answer to that is what I just said. The short answer is yes, it absolutely will be recognized.
Mm-hmm. Will there be before and after care for siblings of those attending kindergarten?
So our kindergarten program is going to start at 8:55. I know we juggled around with the time a little bit, but it is going to be 8:55, and the regular program starts at 9, so we won't have a need for before school care. But our kindergarten program is going to end at 2:15, and our preschool program ends at 1:30. So we are very much hoping to have an after-school program next year. We obviously have to fall in line with COVID regulations that are in place right now, which don't suggest commingling. However, there could be some literature in there about the after-school program that does allow for that, but we will be keeping an eye on that. It is very, very likely that every day we will have the ability for a child to stay after school between 1:30 and 2:15 to be picked up at the same time as their kindergartner. So we're really looking and planning to implement that next year. We obviously have to keep an eye on any kind of guidelines that we have to follow, but we will hopefully have the opportunity for your younger ones to be able to stay here and play with us. And we'll get to you any information about that. We're looking to make it very reasonably cost, and it will be with current teachers here at Tiny Treasures that would stay after school with them.
Okay. Do you expect that the children will receive more one-on-one attention than they would in a public kindergarten?
Do you expect that?
I definitely do.
So you're looking at 12 to 14 children in a class,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at being able to pull children from small groups.
Small groups.
But I remember even going by your classroom in the morning while children are doing morning work, and you've got one pulled. And you're working with one who might need some extra help. So just given the lower numbers, public schools looking at 21, 22 children per class, that we are looking to be able to provide more one-on-one instruction with the children.
If my child is falling behind, will there be an opportunity for tutoring, or will it be pointed out so that we could get outside help?
So like I mentioned, we plan on having a beginning of the year, and the beginning of the year is just to help us know what that child needs to work on, what skills we need to cover, where we need to group them for their groups. And our groups are very fluid.
Oh, yes.
They change all throughout the school year. You'll see a child come back after spring break, and all of a sudden their reading is like 2 levels higher. They're very fluid, and we will move them as needed. But the beginning of the year assessment is really to see what we need to work on, where we need to group your child when we're working on groups, and what our focus is. At that point, that's really more for our use. If we see some red flags of things to work on, we'll definitely let the parents know. But the mid-year and end-of-year assessment are assessments in which we use that information to talk with the parents if we see that possibly the child is struggling and we need to target some extra help. We'll let you know what those skills are, what our recommendations are. If our recommendations are more intensive here, more intensive at home, getting outside help, there'll definitely be that communication. And with the private school ability, there's a lot more communication with the teachers.
Yes.
I remember it was almost parent conference, on a weekly basis, because they come to the door or come at drop off and pick up, and they'd have that ability to talk. So just that communication is going to be a little bit more open, where you're going to hear that information.
Like I said, that's what I love about here is you're a very close little community here, so it's easy to communicate information. All right. What type of readiness test must they pass to be accepted?
So our children who are here at Tiny Treasures already have a beginning, mid, and end of year assessment that their teachers do. And so we will be using that assessment that the teachers here at Tiny Treasures do. There will also be a teacher recommendation that'll be required, and we'll take care of getting any of that kind of information here at Tiny Treasures. Any of our children here in the program that we don't think it could be ready for this kindergarten, we'll be talking to you prior to registration. So that would lead one to believe that the majority of our students here at Tiny Treasures have been in an educational environment and had the amazing teachers that they have that gets them ready for kindergarten. So any of our students that are coming from the outside that we don't know about their educational background, that's when we will have a standard test similar to what we use here at end of year, and also those teacher recommendations that are going to be required. So for our kids here, you can assume that they've all been exposed to certain rigor and standards that they're going to be ready for that class. I know one of the other questions that was submitted was, would there be a classroom aide? At this point, with looking at 12 or so children in the classroom, we do not anticipate any kind of full-time aide or assistance in the class. You've worked with up to 15 in one classroom without any assistance and done beautifully. And the difference is when they get to kindergarten, they're even more independent. They can work on their own a little bit more. And so we don't anticipate the need for that at this point. The children will continue to go to chapel a couple of times a week, not every day, but a couple of times a week. They'll go to action-based learning, and they'll also go to music class, and then they'll go to the playground as well.
Yes.
So we're going to have that. So y'all submitted some really great questions. I hope we helped to answer them. I did have with me 2 copies of Clear Creek ISD's report card and Friendswood's report cards. I wanted to let y'all know that we will be combining to make a combination of that. We've already worked with a very familiar, similar report card that we created for the program we were in for the surrounding districts that it served. But now that we're over here, we want to make sure to incorporate the surrounding districts here. Obviously, if your school registrar in first grade ever had any questions for us, they could call, but it's our goal that everything that's in that report card and the end of year assessment will serve as that. So if you have any additional questions, certainly you can submit them to me at via email at tinytreasures@hope-lutheran.org. I do want to tell our kindergarten, our future kindergarten parents from Tiny Treasures, please do register at Tiny Treasures registration, because we want to be able to give you the opportunity to have those spots. We anticipate that it will fill very quickly. So if you wait until after public registration, we might not have a spot. So if any of you are sitting on the fence, give us a call. We can talk about it. But please do register with returning student registrations for kindergarten. So, thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.